Drew McIntyre quits. Seth Rollins returns. Money in the Bank qualifiers happen, and they're here. And he's here to join me on the Raw review, Mr. Dave Robinson. Evening again, Dave. This is what, 2 days in a row, near enough now.
2 days in a row, two Raws in a row as well, is it?
Yeah, I think so. I
A
think so.
roll, man.
You're on a roll, Dave. You are on a roll indeed. Fresh off Clash at the Castle, just a quick one before we get into Raw. What did you make of actually Clash at the Castle as a whole from what you've seen?
The ending soured it for me, and I think that's the sentiment online. A lot of people are kind of ragging on the show a bit and then weren't that impressed. I think the first Clash at the Castle set quite a high bar. Um, I think if Drew wins that main event, though, there's a different perception of the show.
Yeah,
A couple of people I spoke to as well, a couple of fans weren't thought the Cody AJ finish was a bit flat.
yeah, yeah,
Um, I enjoyed it. I got to say, I enjoyed the show, but I definitely, like I alluded to when we spoke on the AW review last night, I wasn't too keen on the finish. I would have given Drew that big moment, not to harp on about AEW and like similar to yesterday, we was talking about WWE on AEW review.
yeah,
So it's only fair I repay that. But if you remember back at All In, Soraya, yeah, my dad actually pointed this out. Soraya got her big moment in
hmm
London in front of her home fans.
yeah,
In many ways, you could question it, but you couldn't really argue with that moment that was created. And I don't think that they have too many opportunities to do that. You know, when was the last time they had a show in Glasgow, if ever, in terms of a premium live event? Um, I really would have liked, and I am still intrigued with the story. And it's interesting that SmackDown this Thursday is in Chicago. Um, so I'm sure it'll all play out and it'll all be satisfying, and we'll get the great match with Punk and McIntyre, and this will only add to it. Um, I just think it affected the overall show and the perception of the show, given the way it went off air.
yeah, possibly. I mean, there is also the fact that potentially SummerSlam is coming to Wembley next year. Ironically, a couple of weeks before All In.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's got anything to do with it or anyway, we'll cross that bridge as and when that gets announced. First things first, Raw. Seth Rollins, surprise actually. I was very surprised to see him on Raw. He's now come out and it's him and Damien at Money in the Bank for the rematch. Obviously, well, I say it's not even a rematch because Seth had
huh?
lost the title to Drew. Drew
Yeah,
obviously got cashed in by Damien. So Seth comes back in. Always good to see Seth back. He's been out for a while with that leg injury. Do you think? I mean, I think my personal thing is I believe that Seth's going to take that title from Damian Priest at Money in the Bank. Is that a match that you could be invested in? And do you think Seth takes that title back from? Bearing in mind Gunter's waiting in the wings at SummerSlam.
yeah. I've got to say, I love this, and you don't get it too often. And I suppose you could argue that the title shot hasn't been earned, but I think given Seth's run with the title and the fact of how he lost the belt and the injury and the working double duty at WrestleMania, it does justify him getting a one-on-one shot, and it kind of solidifies Damian Priest as a champion and the type of champion that he is, that he recognizes that in himself. He's not a chicken shit heel.
No.
It's a bit of a twin. I think to a degree, because Judgment Day are kind of cool and they're a bit different. You could argue that they're tweeners at times. I know it depends on who they're feuding with, but I think they've got a Damien Priest in particular has got a large fan base. So I really like this, and I really like the fact that we were just thought it was a formality at SummerSlam. It was going to be Damien Priest and Gunther, and now, as you say, maybe not. Maybe they do go with Seth. And then it would be interesting to see how Damien features in the title picture and what they would do if it was Seth and Gunther at SummerSlam. Where that goes. So I like the unpredictability, like we were talking about. We've been talking about a fair bit lately. This is not booking that you expected. It wasn't predictable. I don't think we really anticipated the return of Seth. I hadn't heard anything about him coming out.
Me either.
So I'm all for it. I thought it was great. I love the setup for the match. I think it will be a great match, and regardless of the outcome, I'll be happy with either match we get at SummerSlam. So really good. Enjoyed this.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm interested in it. It kind of, I did then had a thought, but the thought evaporated quite quickly later on into Raw. So we'll get into the men's Money in the Bank. I know that main evented, the qualifier main evented, and the stuff that preceded that we'll get onto a bit later on. But I wanted to talk about that show because my thought, once Seth had come back and said that he was, and they had set up this match, was that Seth would ultimately win the match, and he may have gone on to SummerSlam to take on Gunther. And then my prediction, without seeing the main event, was that Finn was going to win Money in the Bank and ultimately get that title back all them years after he had lost, he had beat Seth and had to relinquish to injury. I know they've had a match, I think, at
Yeah, yeah,
SummerSlam since that point. That was my thing. However, that got blown out of the water because Seth was actually in a match with Jay Uso and Rey Mysterio, a triple threat match when he
Finn.
was
Yeah,
in. And it was quite, it threw me when I saw the match last night because Seth and not Seth, Finn and Jay were the two favorites for Money in the Bank. So
yeah,
unless they do like a thing at the end, because sometimes they do the losers battle royal thing and that gets the last spot, which
yeah.
could open back up an opportunity. Um, Jay Uso obviously picks up the win in that match, and he's pretty much slotted in as favorite. Is A, did the match actually surprise you that it was going to be those two, bearing in mind the story? And secondly, is it too obvious to think that Jey Uso is going on to win Money in the Bank, or would it be a bit more obvious once we kind of know who's in it?
Yeah, I'm guessing we're getting a six men in Money in the Bank.
It's only a couple of weeks away, so
Yeah,
they need to
yeah.
hurry up.
There'll be six though, aren't there? Six participants in the match.
5 or 6 normally, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, Jay certainly was a favourite going into it, but Finn Balor, as you say, for storyline reasons as well, and that callback to Finn being the original Universal
Mhm.
Champion, there was a lot they could do with that. But you've also got the involvement with Finn in the Liv Morgan situation as well. So I suppose it depends which direction they're going with that. Um, yeah, I think I need to wait a little bit longer to see who else is going to be in the match. But Jay's still as popular as ever with the crowd. Started entering through the crowd as well, which I think
Yeah.
really suits his, um, his gimmick or his character, or he's the fans have stuck with him through thick and thin over the last few years, and everything with the bloodline, and I think it makes him a little bit different to everyone else as well. I know Moxley does it in AEW, but I don't recall anybody doing it in WWE since the Shield days. So I think I like that little nuance as well. But yeah, Jay, I certainly wouldn't be disappointed if Jay won that Money in the Bank title. Um, I, I think I don't know what you think. It seems to vary fan to fan. But I wouldn't have no problem with Jey Uso having a world title run.
Yeah, I think like he's the one that's definitely out of the time. And obviously, I know Jimmy's the heel, so it's obviously getting over. But I think there was always an element of like doubt as such as to how over you can get. I know that you do see it when they break away and teams do have sort of one of them normally gets the weaker side of it. And I don't even think Jimmy's got the weaker side because he plays the heel character so well. And I think eventually they're gonna get back, perhaps with Roman at a later date to take on the kind of bootleg bloodline, whatever you
Yeah, the new
call
bloodline.
Roman. Um, but I've got no qualms with Jey Uso title, and I think it's going to be great when it happens. And I think it will happen. Do I
Yeah,
think he's going to win Money in the Bank? I'm not sure because there's also another way. Because on SmackDown this week, and forgive me, I can't remember who's in this actual match that they're doing, but one of the competitors is Randy Orton, and again that opens up the Cody situation.
yeah,
Well, I personally think the money, although having said that, I do think that the Raw Money in the Bank winner, because generally, because there's two matches now, you get a SmackDown winner and a Raw winner. That's just the way they would do it. So the titles can change.
yeah,
I personally think the men's one will be the Raw side. I think there's too much going on SmackDown with the bloodline, with Roman coming back and all of that. And I just think that could kind of lose. And I don't see someone cashing in on Cody yet. I
no,
don't. Actually, it was a question actually I wanted to ask because I was on with the Ringside Renaissance team yesterday, and I posed a question to them about Cody, and my question was to them: and I'll ask you now, is do you think Cody gets to WrestleMania without dropping the title? Or, and also, is Cody, and just thinking about his run at the minute, and I know he's not been booked too well, but is Cody a better chaser than champion?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that could be true of all faces, to be honest. I think the chase is more um, interesting, more entertaining than the actual. Well, I think it's always a great moment when the face captures the title, as Cody
Yeah.
did at WrestleMania. But it's really hard to sustain that because so much of it is about how they got there, the journey. Particularly Cody's, losing the
Yeah.
first year and then having to get back to that same spot 12 months later. Uh, I personally think he will hold it long term. I think he will hold it till WrestleMania, but I think they need to. I don't really know what they need to do, to be honest. I'm not. I don't see them turning Cody heel, anything drastic like that. But as you say, the booking hasn't been brilliant. So there were people complaining after the AJ match that it wasn't. I kind of didn't live up to expectations. I actually thought the first AJ Cody match was fantastic.
Yeah,
Thought
it
it was a
was.
really good match. Um, so we'll see. But what I can say is there are certainly a hell of a lot of potential opponents for Cody. The roster at the minute is fantastic. I'm really impressed. I know we're probably going to get to Bron Breakker, but him since joining the main roster, I think he's an absolute star, and I think that was pretty obvious from when he broke into the business really in NXT that he was going to be somebody that we
Yeah.
could compare with the likes of Lesnar and some of the big guys. I think he's right what they're doing with him at the minute. They haven't plunged him straight into the main title picture. He's kind of more in the IC title, and that's where he needs to be. But moving forward over the next 6 months or so, heading towards next year's WrestleMania, there's certainly a lot of worthy challenges for Cody, and hopefully he can kind of, yeah, it's not a failure as his title run. I'm sure the long-term plan would be for Cody to hold the title for at least a year.
Okay. We'll have a look. We'll have a look. So there's rumors of him going against The Rock next year, and I don't think that needs a title per se, especially if The Rock
Sure.
does go out. I don't know. I mean, listen, plans change like we know, and it did this year. I've now managed to look at the internet while you was answering the question there and get the matches for SmackDown. There's two men's Money in the Bank qualifiers this week on SmackDown. Kevin Owens will take on Grayson Waller and Andrade in one match. And the second match is Randy Orton, Tama Tonga, and Carmelo Hayes. Is
I'd expect Owens and Orton to qualify.
I think perhaps probably Kevin Owens. It's either going to be one or the other. I don't see them both qualifying. So either I see them putting Andrade in it or Tama Tonga, as in like. But I think Kevin or Randy, one of them will be in it, and then it'll be one of the other lot.
You don't think they'll work towards Orton versus Owens in the immediate future? You think that's going to be more of a long-term
I
story?
don't know, it's really weird because again, I was talking to the Ringside Renaissance team yesterday, and we were saying about is a heel turn for Morton because he stared at the title at Clash at the Castle, and you kind of think, would it be a would he because you know what he's like as the Viper, he would could turn on anyone in a heartbeat, and they were saying that they think the match is more about Cody than Kevin Owens. But they were saying that they see the match with Cody mean more about of respect than it is of a heel turn, so like a face, but like a Bulldog Brett kind of
Yeah,
match.
with Randy. Yeah, I, I,
Yeah.
I actually think that Kevin Owens will be the who turns on Randy.
Oh, do you think it'd be Kevin? Oh, okay,
Yeah, I
interesting.
think he'll turn on Randy. Whether that could be in the Money in the Bank match remains to be seen. But as it stands going in,
Mm,
possible. And again, I don't want to keep repeating myself, but that unpredictability,
mm,
great. We can look at matches like that, and you could make a compelling argument for a number of people. You could say Andrade. I know he's picked up the speed title now, but he hasn't. We haven't really seen him in the position that we, as fans that saw Andrade's matches and his body of work in AEW, we know that he could slot into a big match, a Money in the Bank match, and he was a big part of some of the multi-man matches in his time in AEW. I wouldn't be complaining at all if Andrade was the one to make it to the Money in the Bank match. So yeah, SmackDown will be interesting, but we'll have a better idea of who might be facing or who might be getting the briefcase after SmackDown.
Yeah, certainly so. Someone that definitely had an eventful Raw in a lot of ways. Chad Gable, obviously coming off Clash at the Castle this weekend unsuccessfully. Sam with Sami Zayn, they built up that a bit with Otis where he didn't pull the trigger, neither did Maxine, and they got into it a little bit. Well, finally this week when Otis was taking on Chad Gable was taking on Braun Strowman this week. Obviously, Gable had lost the match, and the split finally happened. I My only thing about, and I know we're going to get into stuff that happened after the main event, which we'll give a bit more in, but with Chad, I was just kind of a little bit. I just felt that the end of it with Otis finally sort of quitting on Chad, I just felt a little bit weak. I mean, the crowd were there, but I just felt it lacked. It wasn't like when Sammy turned on Roman or when the Usos turned on Roman, but they built the crowd up enough to get it to that point. I just don't think it delivered when it needed to.
Yeah, you think it was a little bit anticlimactic?
Yeah, and it was just like, that's it, that kind of, and then just picked up Maxine and pissed off at the back, and then they just said, I quit. It weren't like I wanted him to like clothesline him or like fucking press him out the ring or do something that would, all he done was pushed him, and the crowd was like, wow, and they were getting to that point. And you're like, right now, nail him, and they didn't.
Yeah, I think I think the only thing I would say is that was kind of like a soft breakup.
Mm,
I think Chad will manipulate the situation, and there will be a serious break.
mm,
So I think they're kind of doing it in two stages. Whether that's right or wrong, I'm not sure. But as you say, the crowd were there.
yeah.
They love Otis, and he's sensational in that role and kind of like looking after his family. It was almost like Tozawa was his kid, yeah, and I quite like the little the fact that Maxine was the one as well that kind of stood up for to Gable, and then
Yeah.
did that deplorable thing of throwing her crutch to the outside of the ring when she's got a boot in
Yeah.
a leg in a boot. So yeah, I thought there was a lot of really good bits to that. Um, and you say that the reaction to Otis kind of pushing Chad and like ripping his shirt, and
Yeah.
yeah, they were there, so they could have capitalized on that a little bit more with a press slam or something of that ilk. But I do think Chad is going to worm his way back in, and we'll ultimately see Otis go, full turn on him or fully have
Well,
enough, lose his shit.
yeah. Well, we got to make sure Gable's still alive after the
Yeah,
end of Raw. We'll get into that in a minute. Just a quick one. Io Sky did qualify for the women's Money in the Bank ladder match. Liv Morgan distracted Selena Vega, so perhaps Selena Vega, Liv Morgan have a little bit of a to do. We've not really got a lot of time to talk about it because there was so much that happened on Raw, and I think with the Money in the Bank matches, they're probably better left until we have a greater idea as to who's in it, and then there's more to talk about, and there is so much that happened on Raw, which is so nice actually that there's a Raw where there's so many different elements or so many new bits that happen to it that it actually felt like not the I say the attitude era, but when it's compelling enough and there is that compelling elements to Raw, it makes it so much more worthwhile. And it did take me back a little bit to when those days that we used to watch it with the Austins and the Rocks, just the 2024 style.
yeah, the episodic nature of it, the fact
Mm.
that you get to the end of it and you're kind of gutted that the 3 hours is over and you want
Yeah,
to see what happens next. They did a great job. Obviously, we'll get to the ending, but I think there
yeah,
was so much just story development and interesting things and potential matches and zigging when they could have zagged, and all of the options were good ones.
yeah,
So as I say, I'm not going to be disappointed whoever ends up in the Money in the Bank match. Um, I'm interested to see what happens to the guys who don't get it in the Money in the
yeah.
Bank match. I don't think they're kind of cast aside. There's other stuff that they're involved in, as we were talking with Finn Balor. So yeah, it was a real positive Raw, a really good episode.
Yeah, I really thought it was strong from start to finish. We'll just quickly touch on Judgment Day a little bit because there was still another element of the Liv Morgan stuff going. I mean, this is the thing. Judgment Day have got stuff going. Damien Champion, Finn was going in the Money in the Bank, and you kind of had forgotten a little bit about last week. I remember last week, Liv Morgan and the key, and Finn actually took the key and all of this sort of stuff. And Liv had nicked Damien's, I don't know,
Tommy.
Dominic's,
Yeah.
his vest or whatever. And there was this bit out the back where, I mean, we're talking pushing boundaries a little bit from the PG to, kind of TV 13. I mean, there was a seductive bit at the back where she told Finn to come and get the vest, and he had
Dominic, yeah.
unzipped, he has unzipped the top, and you're thinking, and she's giving him that look, and you're thinking, Jesus, I wouldn't want to be Dominic. So, like,
Yeah. Thinking, is Vince booking this?
Vince, I don't even want to know what Vince was doing when he was
Yeah.
watching that.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it was just it was a nice, it was a little tease to obviously what's to come later on down the line. But it was nice that they kept that flowing, even though they had so much other stuff going on.
Yeah, they kept that continuity, and what I liked as well is that Damien was the one that kind of caught him in the act. He's a bit fair on Dom because he
Yeah.
was in that situation where he just wanted his vest back. But Damien to come in and say, "Get back to the clubhouse," and
Yeah.
kind of deal with it. But then even Damien at the end was like, "Oh boy," like he doesn't really know how to deal with Liv. Um, yeah, really good stuff. As you say, she was involved in the women's match as well.
Yeah.
Perhaps get Liv and Zelina Vega, which I think would
Mhm.
be a great match.
Yeah.
That's I could definitely see happening at Money in the Bank. Um, but yeah, as you say, the attention to detail is pretty good.
Mhm.
They're not starting stories and just ending them abruptly. Everything is getting continued on a weekly basis, so it makes it great for the viewer.
Yeah, it does. As you say, Dominic, he's one of the luckiest. I don't give a shit. He's one of the luckiest people. I mean, he's got that, as you say, he's got really nice wife. He's got Rhea, Mummy, and now he's got, Liv. Fucking hell. I mean,
Yeah.
he's one lucky boy. Let's move on from the Judgment Day and stuff, because there is that will blow up again at another point for sure. There's a lot more to come. There's more mileage in that, yeah. Um, Sami Zayn and the Intercontinental title, he retained as we mentioned against Chad earlier on. He now seems to have two new, I wouldn't say enemies, but two new targets for him. One being Sheamus, the Celtic Warrior, which is always good to see. And you mentioned Braun Breaker. Now he's kind of inserted himself into this. I mean, it's what I like about it is again, we mentioned about going back to the Attitude Era. Well, this is kind of taking me back even further, because if you always remember, the Intercontinental title was always the prologue to somebody winning the world title. That was the, Brett, Shawn, people like me, people like that. And I think what they're doing with Braun is they're putting him in with Sami Zayn. Now, I'm not necessarily saying he's going to win the Intercontinental title straight away, but he is going to be winning that title at some point, and it's great because it will set the stage. A bit like what we did with Gunter, they've set the stage. He was champion for so long. I know he's kind of been in and out of it a little bit, but he's got the title shot at SummerSlam that he could win. Who knows? But they're doing it the right way with the guys that they've got. The guys that I think that they want to win the world title. They're doing it the old school way, which I think is really, really good. And I think it will see how good they actually are and whether they are ready to take on to the world title.
Yeah, definitely. And Gunter did a lot of great work to
Yeah.
re-establish that title as a real top title. But I think the booking in general has been good of the IC title. Some of the matches we've had in the past few years. I think Sheamus' involvement now is great because that's a continuation of the Sheamus never holding the IC title. It's the one title
Yeah.
that's suited him in his WWE career. So to reinsert him in that title picture and as to why it's so important to him to win it, makes that title seem even more important, puts real good emphasis on it. Braun Breaker, as you say, definite IC champion, 100% them going in that direction. Whether they do that as soon as Money in the Bank, I'm not so sure. I think Sammy holds on to it a bit longer yet. They may well go a triple threat with that, given the finish to the match
Yeah.
with Kaiser getting involved and causing the DQ. Because I suppose, does that mean Sheamus has won?
Sheamus won by disqualification, yeah, in
Then
that
he
one.
gets
And
the
they could
shot.
go fatal four-way. I mean, that's the other thing. I mean, we can't forget Ludwig Kaiser as well. I mean,
Yeah,
he
yeah.
is
He
absolutely,
beat he beat Sheamus a couple of weeks
yeah.
ago. Yeah,
But you've got to also think about how good because obviously he kind of goes under the radar because of Gunter,
yeah,
but he has got just as good as an opportunity or you wouldn't even, yeah, him as Intercontinental Champion doesn't look out of place.
No, 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 certainly not. That's something that, again, to have him inserted into that title picture makes a lot of sense as well, given the significance and how important it was to Gunter and Imperium.
Yeah.
So yeah, this again, really, really enjoyed it. Loved the spear at the end on the outside to Kaiser, though, and the camera work as well. The
That
fact
was
that they kind
brilliant.
of did it from above, and you saw
Yeah.
Braun running the other side of the ring, and everybody could see other than Ludwig. I thought that was a great moment as well. So really, really great. As I said, I would have liked, well, in some respects, it wouldn't have been out of place for Brom to go into the Money in the Bank picture, but I think this is the right thing, to kind of slow play it a little bit, get him involved in something significant, get him around that intercontinental title scene, which, looking at Gunter propels you to the next level. And that's always the way it was historically. And the fact that Gunter, we're not seeing as much of him lately, I'm cool with that as well, because he's
Yeah.
got his shot at SummerSlam. And one of the things, again, I keep saying AEW, but I don't mean to. But what they do is you do see their top stars disappear for a while
Yeah.
and they come back and it's fresh and it's a bigger moment or it's a bigger return than just having Gunther in some meaningless matches for a few weeks because he's
Yeah.
already got the title shot. So I like that. He gets to rest, recover, have a bit more time with his family. And then when he comes back, it's a bigger moment for us as fans.
Yeah, I mean, he's got the title. I mean, you put that feud, you enlighten that feud when you after Money in the Bank, when you know who the champion is going into SummerSlam, you bring Gunter back then, don't you? Make
Exactly.
logical sense. Whereas you say, rather than stick him in against Tozawa or have him smash the shit out of someone for a couple of weeks while you're waiting, don't need
Yeah.
to have him there when it matters, which will be
Yeah.
after Money in the Bank in a few weeks' time. Is perfect to have him back. And yeah, I mean, in any more of that, any of those four for me, and you're right, the camera work for that spear. And I go on to this. I think Braun Breaker does the best spear now. I think he's beaten Goldberg, the old Goldberg.
Yeah, it's that propel that he gets off his
Yeah,
back legs and he just launches. I mean, I don't know if you've seen the Who Killed WCW doc, but they were ragging on Goldberg a little bit. Bret
yeah.
Hart
Mm.
saying like he doesn't know that it's. I don't think he knows that it's not real. We're not meant to be hurting each other. And Bron Breakker, I look at that spear and it does look very, very. I wouldn't fancy it myself personally.
No.
I think Brett would have liked that spear. It is kind of Goldberg-esque, but
Oh man,
best spear in wrestling, I would agree with you.
yeah, I just a touch on the top. You said Brett in that. It's it's so. I mean,
I he calls Goldberg a gorilla and an imbecile, and it popped me both times.
and
I was laughing at those.
he said like about Messi, yeah, go fuck yourself.
Yeah,
Whatever he says, it's just like Jesus. I mean, the guy. I mean, fair play. He had a torrid time in WCW, and obviously there were so many contributing factors to the stroke and everything that he got from the kick from Goldberg, but it just I've seen like I have started watching it, and but I've seen like the 2 minute clip on on where they when it talks and he's like imbecile, idiot. It's
just ragging on Goldberg. Yeah, yeah.
oh my
I
God.
don't think he's going to let that go anytime soon.
Well, no, and to be fair, I mean, you've got a point, but never change Brett. Just
There was
never.
a part though as well when Goldberg said he was in a match with Scott Hall and he messed up a spot. It was
Yeah,
just an Irish whip or something, and
yeah.
Scott Hall went down to the floor, and Scott Hall said, "What are you doing, bro?" And Goldberg went, "I don't fucking know," because he was like Goldberg recognizes that he was just so green
Yeah,
that he didn't know, and he threw him in the match. I remember that match. I don't specifically remember that spot, but I just thought it was a fascinating insight. They
yeah,
really pushed him to the moon, and he just wasn't technically, good enough to be in that position, but it was one of the WCW's most phenomenal successes, and in wrestling in general, I would say. I mean, Goldberg's gone on in recent years and done big, big money with WWE and been in some
yeah.
big matches, rightly or wrongly, but it drew a lot of money. So
It is.
but that I think it's a four-part series, and the two have been released. So anybody
Yes,
who hasn't watched Who Killed WCW, I would definitely
watch
recommend
it.
it for wrestling fans.
It
There's fascinating insights.
I love it. I love that one insight. Anyway, let's Just wanted to get one bit before we kick off with Drew. There was an interesting bit with the authors of Pain and Karrion Cross. Now, seemingly, from what I've read, potentially they're looking at splitting up the New Day now, Kofi and Xavier, and they're probably going to be using this as a prologue. Now, we're going to talk. I am going to mention AEW in a minute as well, and I'm also going to mention the other word that we've been mentioning a lot recently called contracts. Um, I don't see how either of these two, and I know they've had success as singles, we've seen it, but they've always had success as singles. I mean, Kofi was successful before the New Day. He'd won Intercontinental Championships and whatnot.
Yeah.
But they've had single success as the New Day. They were still the New Day. They were still, it was Xavier was the New Day, Kofi Kingston was the New Day. If they split these guys up, I do not see how either of any of those two are going to make uh, well, it depends on what they want to do, obviously, but I don't see Kofi or Xavier doing anything as a single now. I think that thing is, it's one of those things where you just keep it. But interestingly enough, I think as we enter the fall, as they call it, the fall or the latter part of 2024, both Kofi Kingston, well, actually Big E's as well, but I'm sure he'll probably re-sign because they'll think of something for him to do because of the injury, such. But Kofi and Xavier's contracts are up, and I just wonder whether they fit that mantra of AEW more than the WWE.
I could see Kofi personally in TNA.
In TNA.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
that's where I would expect Kofi to land. Xavier, not so sure. Maybe back to NXT. I don't know, a bit of a repackage.
Got that friendship with Omega though, hasn't he?
Mm,
Oh, that's
yeah,
computer
came
game.
in community. So it's possible we could see them both there. Um, I don't necessarily see. I mean, I think they're not. They're great athletes. Kofi must be 40s, mid.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
So, I don't think I'd necessarily want to see him taking the spot of some of the younger talent that we see in AEW. I don't know. There's probably a way to do it and integrate him, and it could be a success. I'm not sure. I think a better fit for him would be alongside Dolph Ziggler and some of the other WWE alumni. He's got a lot to offer wrestling, but as you say, I'm a Kofi fan. Absolutely, always have been. But a singles run at this stage, I don't see the mileage. I hope I'm wrong, in some respects. Um, I don't want to see his career peter out, but to answer your question, really, I was quite happy with his involvement in the New Day, and I was hoping that Big E would come back and
Yeah.
they'd reform as the trio, and that was them. That you didn't really need to have them turning on each other, and it does look like some of the little bits that we've seen and talking over each other and stuff. They are hinting at a breakup, which again, long term, I'm sure we'll get a couple of good matches in the short term, but long term, I don't think that is going to be a good thing for either of them.
No, I don't either. But I wanted to make that point because of just because there was part of Raw that I was intrigued in just to see if they do it. But we'll wait and see whether they do split them up or whether they did to keep them
Yeah.
together. But
Could you anticipate Kofi getting back to that level where he held the WWE title? And could you see Woods getting beyond like King of the Ring? Because that's probably the highest success he achieved as a singles wrestler. I think I don't believe they got a ceiling as such, but I
I
just think that was their time, and the fact that
exactly.
they've gone back down the pecking order, if you like.
Yeah.
I'd rather them stay together as a team. But
Yeah, exactly. I don't see any mileage in splitting them up. I really don't. I think that, as you rightfully said, I think that time has passed. And I agree. TNA, they've got quite a lot of the sort of the more experienced guys now. Jeff Hardy, obviously. I know Matt and Jeff haven't got contracts currently, but they're kind of doing the TNA thing. You see, Ziggler's there. Ryan Nemeth has been there for the last month now. I don't know whether what's going on with AEW, whether that ship has sailed or whether he was, I don't know what happened there. But
good
uh,
friend with Bucks, isn't he? Ryan Nemeth. So he's always on. He was always on being the elite. So
yeah.
Yeah, whether he's just got that flexibility to work alongside. It's interesting, is it? Because now TNA have got this working arrangement with WWE. Like, how does that affect anything like that? If Nick Nemeth, or not, sorry, Ryan Nemeth is contracted to AEW and he's working in TNA, I mean, that's in a roundabout way, all of the companies are working together,
Yeah.
but yeah, not something I expected to be seen, to be honest.
No, not at all. We'll find out. But yeah, Kofi and Xavier either keep them with a New Day or that they're better off going off elsewhere. And TNA would be, I think, a better destination. One of the big things to come out of Raw, and it was brief, really, really brief. So McIntyre screwed out of the thing at Clash at the Castle. Basically, comes out on Raw and says, "I quit. That's it, done." And he walks out. Triple H tries to, thingy it. It's interesting because we all knew the contract situation. We know that's re-signed. They've made a big deal out of it that it's been re-signed. Would it have been better? And I don't doubt this feud's going to ignite and it's going to be great. And I'm going to enjoy it when it could even kick off on SmackDown. Maybe he quit because he could go to SmackDown on Friday and do something. But would it have been more intriguing a little bit had it not come out that McIntyre had signed the contract with the WWE and he walked out on Raw just then, quit and walked out? Because that would have left you with that little, oh shit, he's gone. We've still got this feud with Punk, but he's gone.
Yeah, yeah, I think they could have involved the real life situation of the fact that he hadn't signed the contract.
Hmm.
As you say, still interesting,
Yeah.
still good. I enjoyed it, and as you say, as we mentioned earlier, SmackDown's in Chicago, but Punk's a Raw guy, isn't he? So I don't
Yes.
really know how they do that. You'd expect the fact that they're in Chicago that Punk will be there. I don't know if they've announced that he will be, but
Yeah. They
yeah,
have.
they have.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So for what justification have they given because of the yeah,
No,
you know what I'm
fuck
gonna
the draft. The draft doesn't fucking
say.
matter,
Yeah.
does it? Let's be honest with you. Christ almighty. I think what he said was that he had permission to bypass Raw to go to the doctor to get cleared, and the doctor's in Chicago. So he would announce that he'd been cleared on SmackDowns,
Oh,
basically.
well, I'm thinking surely Drew's got to extract some measure of revenge. Um,
Yes.
and given where it is and the reaction that Punk will get and the reaction that Drew will subsequently get, that would be a great way to continue this. Who
Mm.
knows? We might not see Drew for a few weeks now, but I suspect we will. This match has got to happen at SummerSlam. Drew and
I was going to say, is this match of this magnitude too big for a Money in the Bank
I
pay-per-view?
think so, yeah. I think you save it, and they've done so well telling this story, and it hasn't really been derailed. I mean, in fact, Punk's injury has added to it, really kind of,
Mm.
you know, worked out well from a storyline perspective. And everything that happened at WrestleMania. And as I say, I wasn't personally a fan of the finish to Clash, but there'll be people that were. There'll be people that thought it was big Punk fans that thought it was absolutely brilliant. That Punk did that, and the way they shot it with Punk sliding in, and you only saw the back of his head. It was they did it well, but I just personally wasn't what I wanted to see. But in terms of the match, when it happens, I think it'll happen at SummerSlam, and it'll be a great match and must see.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm looking forward to it. Can't wait. I still think McIntyre, yeah, takes him out on SmackDown and maybe just puts him on that shelf a little bit. Like he was cleared, but McIntyre
Attack the
unclears him.
arm, attacks the
Yeah,
arm. Yeah.
claymores it, does something to it, beats the shit out of him. So he's a little bit. So they've got a bit more time to see that feud off until SummerSlam. That's my opinion,
They
anyway.
should definitely do something with real glass as well.
Oh, Jesus. Oh my God. Yeah, I could. I mean, Punk's he come out at the castle in the donuts and all of that stuff as well, which was interesting. Okay, let's get to the massive, the huge. Look, it's been brewing for months. They would vignette after vignette after vignette after QR code at the end of the Jey Uso match at the main, he's in the crowd. We have the Fiend lights going off. We have the door. We have the old Shatter music, although we didn't get very far, just got to the beat, and that's how far it got. The door opens, this fucking creature crawls out, which is Nikki Cross in an outstanding like mask and whatever it is. She gets up, she points like it did in the QR code. You go in, you slide just through the doors of Raw, and you see Eric Rowan. You see someone pretty much dead on the floor. Eric Rowan turns round in the Bludgeon Brothers, his old hammer with help written on it. You go through into Gorilla, and it's like Resident Evil, the game, if anyone ever remembers that. It's the flashing lights, and I think you see Joe Gacy in the corner, and then no, it's not Gacy,
It's the Loomis.
Loomis. Loomis in the corner with another one dead in the floor. You go to the other side and you see Joe Gacy and another one dead on the floor. And then you see Chad Gable, who looks like he's had a bullet put through his head. Blood and this big hole in there, and he's covered in blood. And you just see this figure standing in the back, and it's Uncle Howdy with he's got the red circle on the hat. If people can see, he's got Bray on his glove. If you come out, and he comes out, and he basically they all follow him through the door, and he then just says those magical words, which I said at the start of the podcast, which is "We're here." Blows out the lantern, the Raw ends. I mean, Jesus, that was just. I mean, last time when Bray come back at Extreme Rules, I felt as if that was great, and then it just petered away. I thought this was like a fucking murder scene in a film. It was so well put together. I just hope that that isn't it, if you know what I mean.
100%. That's exactly what I felt as well. It was like a film. It was like a horror movie, and that was great. But I want them to fully invest in it. I don't want them to just do it for 1 week and then, I'm hoping, given how long it's taken to get to the reveal, that there is a lot of ideas and a lot of creative and a lot of stuff to come. And it's not just going to be dropped a few weeks in, or it's going to be watered down, or it's a difficult one
Mm.
to mix in like the supernatural with wrestling, but we've seen it being done successfully before, and this was the perfect way to start it, introducing those characters to us. Um, as you say, it was great when Bray's return was good. This was better in many respects, and I don't know if they're going as the Wyatt Six. There was five of them, but
It's
obviously you've got Bray.
now I don't know. I don't like to. I don't like to go into AEW when we're talking about this. It's called Six. You know, like sickos.
Yeah,
SICKS. And I'm just I don't like to do the resemblance. I don't know. Oh, it's just them, but sickos, sick. It's got that, you know,
yeah,
kind of, thing to it. But we can't take away from what happened. It was just
yeah,
an amazing review. And actually, during Raw, again, eagle eyes, and this is where the best thing is about the WWE now. You have to have eyes around. People would notice that when Seth was in the ring, they had a camera shot looking into the corner. And I don't think you can see it on my phone, but they circled Uncle Howdy
oh, cool.
at the start of Raw. And if you go on a bit later on in Raw, Chad Gable is in the locker room. And if you look above him,
The
there's
rabbit,
Rambling Rabbit.
rambling rabbit. Yeah, yeah, I did clock that.
And you've got to put the. So what we know now, it's been obviously a few hours, near enough a day removed from the reveal. What we've seen now and what we've heard now is that this could carry on throughout show. So we could be, but apparently there's going to be method to who they attack. So, and there was a lot of other people on the floor. A lot of people said it was Gunter. It was, yeah, I don't quite know. We didn't see him, so we can't.
Yeah,
The only one that we saw fully was Gable, and he's meant to
yeah,
be in a match next week with Strowman and Bronson Reed, of all people, to qualify for the Money in the Bank. So it is. I'm intrigued now for SmackDown. I don't know if it's going to happen on NXT. We'll touch on NXT very shortly in a minute, because there's going to be some stuff going down on that we're going to want to see. I don't know if they come out on NXT, but if they are a part of SmackDown, I need to know what they're going to do there.
yeah. I would like this kind of chaos to be repeated. We don't want to see it week in, week out
No,
but I certainly think for the next few weeks, if we just keep that uncertainty, what is their agenda? Who are they going to attack? Why are they attacking them? I think there's a bit of, we keep saying mileage, but I think there really is. I think there is something that can be done there that can build the intrigue even further. Like we don't want to in-ring segment on SmackDown of Uncle Howdy talking as to why they
No.
attacked Chad Gable. We want to keep that mystery. We want to keep us guessing as fans. You could see that they'd laid people out, but they all look like staff and production crew and stuff. As
Yeah.
you say, it was only Chad Gable that they made a point of showing his face, and you heard the reaction of the crowd as well when Gable was on the big screen.
Yeah.
So more of the same as far as I'm concerned. It was a great way to introduce them, but I don't see any reason why to kind of change that formula straight away. Keep going with it.
Yeah, keep going with it. And we'll see what happens on SmackDown. I just want to mention NXT this week. Big battle royal. Trick Williams, number one contender for Trick Williams NXT Championship. We're expecting TNA involvement in the battle royal. So I'm going to be keeping off social media in the morning, and I'm going to be watching NXT, and I want to find out what happens myself. Really looking forward to that. Speaking of NXT, quite quickly tomorrow. Well, when this goes out, it'll be tonight. I'll be interviewing Mustafa Ali's bit on the side, shall we say. Campaign Singh will be coming on to the podcast. On my birthday. I keep mentioning it this week. It's my birthday week. My birthday's Thursday. Big important birthday. I'm going to be interviewing Damien Sandow on my birthday. Well, Aaron Stevens. He's now in NWA as manager of one of the tag teams in the Crockett Cup, and that's what we're going to be talking about. But I'm interviewing him on my birthday, so that's going to be all shades of awesomeness. But Dave, obviously, we're going to be back with some more AEW stuff the weekend. Hopefully, Gary Joe can join us as well. We can review the week of what's going to be AEW. But again, man, we got to do this again next week. It's always fun when we get onto this and we can talk. And there's so much. What I love at the moment is wrestling is red hot, and when it's red hot, there's so much fun to go.
It has been for a while, and I keep expecting. I don't know if it's the pessimist in me for kind of dip the other way and to go through a down period. And don't get me wrong, every show hasn't been
Yeah.
awesome. We have had a few dips and a few questionable episodes of both, all companies really. But overall, the popularity of wrestling and the production values, the size of the shows, the places they're going, the arenas and stadiums that they're performing in. Long may it continue, and with shows like we saw from Raw on Monday, and hopefully good shows coming up, Money in the Bank, SummerSlam, really laying the foundations to have some really really strong premium live events. So yeah, long may it continue.
Bad Blood coming back as well in October.
Oh,
Interestingly enough, that's normally a Hell in a Cell. Maybe we'll see that, but we'll wait and see. But Dave, thank you as always for coming on. It's always great to chop up some wrestling, whether it's Raw, whether it's AEW, whatever. We'll do this again at the weekend, guys. Keep check out on us at HTT Buckle on Twitter. Blowing up the YouTube again, nearly 1,000 views for me on Clash at the Castle. Fuck the people want to watch me for. We got interviews and you'd rather see me. Seriously, guys, honestly. But thank you so much for every one of the new followers. Obviously, again, big thanks to AW for Lance Archer last week as well. Hopefully we'll get some more on soon. Keep a look out for Campaign Seeing, hitting the Turnbuckle podcast and all other social media outlets. I am gonna think of a Raw exit that I'm gonna use, but I haven't thought of one just yet. So I'm just gonna finish off on the usual one to say, everybody, until next time, buckle down, stay safe, and goodbye.